All right, sound check. Can everybody hear me? All right, so let's get back on the sound check here and see if anybody can actually hear what I'm trying to say. All right, so it looks like the sound is okay. All right, so this is one of my holiday specials that I do. I have the day off, although to get it, I had to work my normal day off on Tuesday. So I only got Monday off instead of Monday and Tuesday. All right, so this week, let's see. My article for Kulturni Studia in Prague is up. There's a link in the description, and it is on Kurds in the Soviet Union. I'll put it in the chat as well. So it's in English and in Czech translation. So this is the English language version I'm going to link to. All right, so if anybody's interested in that. Also in the description below, this new, I call it feature of Academia EDU. So when you go to my profile page now, it's got like a Twitter-like timeline, which even fewer people than on Twitter look at because it got the number of viewers. So I linked to my article in Kulturni Studia, it got 7 viewers. Link to my book, 16 viewers. All right, so, but I'll put that up there. Supposedly, they were going to interview me last week, but scheduling conflicts, so they'll get back to me on Monday. But supposedly, the EDU people want to talk to me for 45 minutes on Zoom, and then they'll give me a $150 Amazon voucher. No. I still haven't finished all my work. I still got that book review on the Crimean Tatars and finish editing the book chapter on Germans in Kazakhstan. But I did do also have a peer review of a journal article manuscript on Monday, which I did immediately after receiving it. And so it should be, I don't know what will happen with the other reviewers, but the article was a little bit interesting, but needed more context, definitely. As one of the problems with academia, things are so narrow. So I remember when I was supervising graduate students in Ghana, they'd all want to write about the history of their little village. And I would always tell them, what in this dissertation will possibly interest somebody in Nairobi or Lagos or Johannesburg? And if you can't answer that question, then you need to go and redo it, because a little village in a little country in Africa is not have sufficient audience if it's not connected to larger themes and events. So I was trying to make the department more Pan-African, because obviously making it international and global would be too big a step. But I thought we could perhaps move on out of merely looking at the history of a very small section of the continent to how does that history affect or interact or have parallels with history elsewhere. It's not that easy, obviously. Historically, Africa is a fairly diverse continent. If nothing else, because of the different colonial powers, the French and British, in particular, having very different styles of colonial rule. But even within the British former colonies, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, to an extent, or at least since they took it from the Dutch during the Napoleonic Wars, there's still, of course, quite a bit of difference in things like local languages, uh, the historical interaction between the colonial powers and the indigenous peoples and other factors. So I won't say I was successful, but I did try and push for kind of broader thinking. And so this paper was on Ukraine and a specific Soviet policy. But he didn't tie it into a lot of other related Soviet policies. Because I am not an expert on the very specific thing he was writing about, but I am an expert on the things that are related to it regarding Soviet policy during the 1930s and 1940s into the early 50s. No, this is not surprise stream, Steve. This is holiday stream. I do stream every holiday. So the last one would have been Veterans Day. But at any rate, yeah, I'm not going to have any turkey today. I just had a Red Baron pizza, and I got one more Red Baron pizza and one DiGiorno pizza left in the freezer. So there we go. You can check out my article, which again is basically the paper I gave to a workshop at the Library of Foreign Literature in Moscow in the summer of 2019. But now it has been written up and published on the web out of Prague and also translated from English into Czech. So if there's anybody who speaks Czech as a native language, there is a version in Czech as well as the English original up at the Kulturní Studia site, which is run out of Prague by I remember what university it is. It's have to go look it up, I guess. Oh, it is. Oh, University of, I can't find it. It was something like University of Life Sciences or something. but it was basically an agricultural institution under the communists, and since the end of communist rule in Czechoslovakia and the breakup of the state into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, it's branched out into other things. So the article is on Kurds in the USSR, in the Transcaucasus, and Kazakhstan and Central Asia. Specifically a lot on the 1944 deportation of Kurds from the Georgian border in Meskhetiya over into Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. So, if you're interested in reading that, and of course, the book, the link to Amazon there is as well. And if you want to check out my other social media other than Twitter, the Academia EDU Twitter-like thingy, which gets very, very little interaction and not a whole lot of readers. So I'm not sure what the point of it is, but hopefully I'll get that $150 Amazon voucher next week. You can buy some books to read. Okay. Let's see if I can get okay, there we go. All right. The Hemshins are Armenians that converted to Islam under Ottoman rule. So they practice Sunni Islam but speak Armenian. There are not a whole lot of them. Rather small group, but a number were deported along with the Meskhetian or Azizka Turks and Kurds in November 1944 from the areas of Georgia bordering Turkey and sent into Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Uzbekistan. So you can read the article. As I said, there's almost no difference from what I delivered orally in Moscow 3 years ago. The workshop on Russian and Kurdish relations being hosted at the Library of Foreign Literature. But the money to fly me to Moscow coming from France. Some Kurds are communists. They are split into various factions. So the PKK under Öcalan was Marxist-Leninist, and it controlled the Syrian Kurdish parties as well, including the armed militias, the Yapaga and Yapaja. but other Kurdish factions like the KDP under Barzani, the so-called Yellow Party that rules Erbil, are not communist. They're pretty much, in Marxist terms, a straightforward national bourgeoisie. Oh. Oh. But at any rate, the article that I gave in Moscow, the paper I gave in Moscow, and the article published by the Kulturny Studia in Prague doesn't deal with the Kurds in either the Turkish Republic or the Federal Republic of Iraq, or the Islamic Republic of Iran, or the Arab Republic of Syria. It deals only with those within the USSR, and it's from 1917 to 1956. So a limited chronology, but one, because of its geography, that's largely been ignored. There's probably more written on Kurdish diaspora in Sweden or the Kurdish diaspora in the Netherlands than there is in the Soviet Union, although for a long time, the Soviet Union was the only place that was allowing and supporting the development of Kurdish culture, particularly in the Armenian Soviet Socialist Republic. There was a lot of support out of Yerevan for the Kurdish language, culture, and scholarship. All right. So let's yeah. So in addition to kind of academic dabbling, so the peer review of the manuscript on a small element of Ukrainian history during the Soviet era. Still have to finish editing the book chapter on Germans in Kazakhstan, which was originally given last year, 2021, international conference on Veterans Day, done through Zoom, but participants from Germany, Austria, Canada, the U.S., Argentina, and Brazil, and one from the U.K., Lena Wolf, who's been on the show a couple times. So I'm pretty sure fascism and National Socialism are reactions against Marxism. Without the development of Marxism and then the Marxist uprisings in Italy and in Bavaria and other parts of Germany, and of course their success in Russia, that you would not have had the development of either Italian fascism or German National Socialism. This is the main point of people like Ernst Nolte, but also Arno Meyer, that a lot of fascist and National Socialism momentum and popularity was specifically its opposition to Marxism, and that without the Bolshevik Revolution, it's unlikely that you would have had, certainly in Germany, success as a National Socialist. All right. Um, so on Saturday, hopefully it's still on afternoon. I don't know if it'll be on this channel or it will be on one of the mini channels of his giant media empire, but I will hopefully be discussing my book, The Years of Great Silence, on the ethnic Germans in the Russian Empire and Soviet Union with Don the Pleb. He should have had time to read it by now. But we'll see how his schedule is. We can do Saturday afternoon after I get off from work. I work 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every day except Monday and Tuesday. So, uh, and hopefully that interview will go okay. The last interview I did about the book was on this channel with Andy Nowicki, or the original pronunciation, Novisky. And I think that went pretty well. Some do. I mean, you see some German influence in Russian cuisine. About the ethnic Germans in the Russian Empire, you see a lot of Russian and also Ukrainian and even Crimean Tatar influence in their cuisine. The most famous beer in Russia is Baltica. I don't know how old it is and whether that has anything to do with the Baltic Germans or whether it's out of, might be out of Leningrad or what is now St. Petersburg. So let me see. Baltica. All right. Second largest brewing company in Europe. Controls 38% market share of Russian beer sales. Headquarters in St. Petersburg. Part owned by Baltic Beverages Holding. Founded in 1990, so it's not very old, but it so that doesn't have any connection. But that's almost 40% of all beer sales in Russia itself are Baltica. Now the only whiskey really that's famous in the U.S. is bourbon, but that technically has to come from Bourbon County, Kentucky. But this is not my real area of expertise. Rye is an American original. I suppose, yes. Yeah, again, I'm getting sidetracked here. I am licensed by the state of New Mexico to sell alcohol, but not an expert on the different types of whiskey. All I know is bourbon is made with corn. All right. So Glib Medley's still around after all these years. Predictions for Twitter. Don't have any. Walrus, don't have any. Not exactly sure that it matters. I suspect Twitter will continue to exist. But I also suspect, despite the removal of censorship, that, like everything else on the internet, the overall quality will continue to decline. Live right next to Carlsberg. I'm assuming that's the Carlsberg brewery in Copenhagen. I've only been to Denmark once. So, if you have nothing else to do on this Thanksgiving break, you can go check out my new article. Anything else I've written. Probably not going to be a lot of takers, but one is better than zero. And if you still haven't figured out Christmas gifts, my book is a mere $42. And if I sell over 100 total, I'll start to get $2.14 for each one sold. I'm not exactly sure the total sales. WorldCat says it's now listed in 72 libraries. The most recent acquisition being the University of California, San Diego, which is where Herbert Marcuse used to teach. But its sales have been almost entirely, it looks like, to libraries in the US and Germany, about half and half. I don't think I've sold a single copy to a British library yet. So I guess I could open it up to everybody wants to come on. So if you want to come on, I can send you a link if you contact me either by email or Twitter DM. Oops, I did that wrong. It's the second one. The first one was done incorrectly. But yes. Oh, if not, then this probably will be wrapped up soon, short stream, because other than what I just went over, I haven't done much other than the day job, which is not anything really interesting. I'm just a janitor for a large grocery store. Think what about Ukraine? Have to be more specific. Uh, I don't have any general thoughts about the Ukraine. All my thoughts are specific. Uh, uh, so, if anybody wants to join me, talk about anything, but particularly, I don't know. Uh, anything that I've gone over already. All right. Okay. So, Didn't mean to do that. That was a mistake. All right. Now, I can just put the link here. There we go. Okay. All right. No, nobody's decided to come on yet. I live by a railroad. I work by a railroad, but it's about a mile from where I live, so. Oh, we have a guest. Wiener, wie geht's? Können Sie mir hören? Hallo? Hallo? Ich kann nichts hören.
Hallo?
Hello? Yes, I can hear you now. Oops. Hello? 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 Hello?
Ah ja. Does it work already? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Otto. Walrus too. Very good, very good.
Walrus.
Hey, long time no talk. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Hallo.
Yes?
Werner.
Oh. Hello?
I was on a bit of a delay for a bit. I don't know if it's still going. I turned off my other app.
Okay.
So when you're alone on Thanksgiving, you got to have a turkey TV dinner. That's the more ironic choice, I think.
Okay. I just,
Can you
I
hear
just-
me?
yes. Go ahead. Oh, you muted yourself again. Has everybody muted themselves?
So I was happy to see Eke is back on Twitter there. Did you see that?
Briefly. People keep. Okay. All right. Why is everybody muting themselves?
Just not to make any unfortunate noises when someone start trying to talk or something.
Okay.
So how's the new job going?
It's going fine. I mean, I'm just the morning janitor for the store, but it pays a little bit more per hour, and I'm guaranteed 40 hours a week, so I get a good insurance package starting next month.
Nice. And I guess you're done earlier in the day, and you have the rest of the time to yourself, right?
I'm done at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah,
But
it's been a interesting couple of years. You took the big hiatus when you were a junior high teacher, and then we had Corona and everything else, eh?
yeah, well, I almost died as a junior high teacher, so
I read
didn't have much. Didn't have much. I don't know. I didn't have much time. I guess all my time got used up just living in constant anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I think it takes a certain personality type, and kids are getting so bad these days. It's just it can be too much for some people. I don't know. I would fucking for $30 American an hour, I would stand there and let them yell at me all day. But easier said than done when you're not actually in the situation, right?
Yeah. It wasn't possible to impose any type of discipline.
Yeah. Once they know they rule the roost, it's over. And the thing is, these days, like it was bad when I was a kid, 25 years ago or whatever. I can't imagine it today because, people are so averse to disciplining their kids in any significant way. They just and then they watch YouTube all day where people are rewarded for acting out with like 1 million views and everything else.
Yeah, I made it 7 months, and in retrospect, that's pretty miraculous. I made it that long.
Yeah, 7 months and it took 7 years off your life, eh?
I don't know if it took 7 years off my life, but there were 2 times. The one, ironically, Day of the Dead, 2021, and the other in March, right before they asked me to resign, where I'm pretty sure I was pretty close to having a heart attack.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's you really you need to get out when something like that's going on.
So they gave me a severance package. I got 11 months salary for 7 months of work, so I just lost out on 1 month.
There you go.
And then I was unemployed until the end of June, and then I started working where I'm working now, but as a grocery checker. But the problem with that job is that the hours kept fluctuating, and they got down to where a number of weeks they were talking 20 hours a week or less. So
Yeah, my ex-wife worked in a bakery in a grocery store, and the job wasn't too bad in so much of what she was doing, but you didn't know from 1 week to the next what your hours were. It was just crazy. Like you couldn't plan ahead because they decided what you were doing. Like maybe you would be working Saturday, maybe not. Like it's kind of a joke in that way.
yeah, and so when the morning janitor quit all of a sudden, they called and asked me if I wanted the job. And the first thing they said, of course, to entice me was it was 40 hours a week. But then they said it was 40 hours, the same 40 hours a week. So, this week a little bit different because Thanksgiving, so I had to work Tuesday. But normally it's 1 to 5 every day. I mean, 5 to 1 every day, except Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, consistency. Like at our age, like you're a little bit older than me, not a ton, but it's really much better for your health and getting up your circadian rhythms and all that stuff. It really has a huge effect on your mental well-being and everything.
Yeah, I know. I much prefer the regular hours, and ironically, because I'm not a morning person, I want to do the work early in the morning as possible. Right,
Well,
give
then
work gets the shitty hours that I'm not gonna enjoy anyways.
yeah, well, your brain you're sort of in a robot mode because your brain's not even on yet, so it's kind of good that way. You just get it done.
Yeah, that's right. In the first 2 hours, I'm just cleaning the toilets anyways. It requires no brain power.
So, have you streamed with James lately, or what's going on with him?
He's working the same job as far as I know back in New York City. I don't know. My schedule now is finally stabilized. But for a long time it was shifting. So from June to I've only been doing this for like 3 weeks now.
Oh yeah, yeah. They really seem to be squeezing the working class the last year and a half. Like I don't know about down there, but rents in Canada have gone up around 35%, and that's that's just
my rent hasn't gone up, and that's largely because my landlord is a very devout evangelical Christian, so he doesn't believe in exploiting people.
Nice.
But also, I don't think it can be possible because the state of New Mexico passed the rent freeze just this last midterm.
Yeah, in Ontario, you can raise it 2.5% a year now, but to placate the builders, what they did is now they're saying anything built after 2018, you can raise as much as you want. So I couldn't imagine, you're barely scraping by, and then suddenly you get $1,000 rent increase. It's just criminal, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've been fortunate through the whole thing here. I don't think that my landlord, who is basically retired and has a number of properties, but I don't think he's going to raise the rent. Everything else has gone up. But I noted a lot of people didn't want to raise prices. So I know that the local brewery here, they held out up until like 2 months ago, and they finally had to raise prices from $6 to $6.50 a pint. But the only reason they did it is because all of their ingredient prices went way up.
Well, wages have gone up too, so you can't blame them too much. But apparently, there is a lot of wage gouging by the companies. Like they see they can get away with it, so there's the shrinkflation where they make the portion sizes smaller and just jacking up the prices. I've seen a ton of that.
Yeah, well, the Big Mac is now smaller than the White Castle burger.
Has Werner been on before? How you doing, buddy?
I don't know if it works now. Can you understand?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I had some big boomer tech problems earlier on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
How is Wien?
Yeah, Wien we have 7 degrees, which is slightly colder than you had in Carlsberg, whatever. Carlsbad.
Carlsbad, yeah. It's named after the Carlsbad in Bohemia.
Yeah. Like a big spa from the Austrian Hungarian monarchy. I think it was the most posh spa they had.
Well, at one time, this area was under rule by the Spanish Habsburgs.
Was it?
Yes.
Oh, you mean New Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah. But you have a cold wave. Is that true?
Yeah, it's been freezing. It's been 0 degrees Celsius when I walk to work in the morning.
I checked out. Albuquerque had -10 or so.
No,
But
right now it's pretty warm, but it was a couple of days where it just didn't warm up at all. It was around freezing the whole day. Well, I had the first day it did some serious damage to my hand working outside. So, but I've got gloves and Lubriderm, so they recovered. But it cracked the skin on the back of my left hand in 3 places. It was so cold.
But is it usually that cold in your area, or is it?
It wasn't last year. Last year it was pretty warm, except for the one day it snowed.
So you have a kind of a continental climate.
Yeah. Well, this isn't new because there are records of the Spanish when they were here, particularly in the Oñate. They're talking about how cold it got in the winter here, how it was much colder than in Spain.
Because we have at the moment we have like a wave of young people who protest against the climate change. The warming of the earth by gluing themselves to paintings in museums and gluing themselves with like I don't know how you call it, like we call it Sekundenkleber, like this instant glue to the street and blocking the traffic. And today
we generally call it super glue.
Super glue, yeah, that makes sense. And today I think they glued themselves in Berlin on the runway of maybe not the runway, at the airport.
I'm suspicious because how are these guys getting past the museum security and allowed to do that? It seems like some inside assistance is being provided to them to get access to these artworks.
Yeah, it's very, very strange to me too, because then they rarely get like punished from court, and apparently they get a kind of salary. Some American NGO is funding them, and also apparently some branch of the German government, which is green now. You know, they have the Greens in the German government, in Austria actually too. So because when I'm bringing this up, because if you have a cold wave in the USFA, yeah,
Yes.
then you had a good argument that climate change actually isn't happening that severely. But we don't have that at the moment. We have ordinary weather, slightly.
Well, I think climate goes on cycles. So as I said, if you go back to the 16th and 17th centuries, the Spanish are writing about how freezing cold it is here in the winter.
Well, when I was a kid, from November onwards, it was complete. It was snowing the whole time. And the last couple of years, just around Christmas, it snowed a bit, and then it starts snowing around January heavily, which is kind of weird. But you never know, because there's so many factors that go into it. I think there is something going on, but I don't think. I think carbon is really it's a scam, because the more carbon you produce, the better it is for the foliage, right? So you just plant more trees. So that's what I can glean from it.
I mean, I don't think carbon dioxide is a problem. It's pretty much an inert and non-toxic gas. I mean, it's a byproduct of what you breathe out.
Exactly, but I thought if we had here in Europe your cold weather, like I think like 80% of the USFA was freezing the last week. This climate gluers, this kind of terrorists actually are. They wouldn't have had such good PR on television, So you are
Probably
actually in a
not.
lucky position.
I don't know. This is a lot colder than I expected, and it got cold really fast. It was like one day it dropped from I don't know, somewhere around in the morning. It dropped from 60 Fahrenheit to 30 Fahrenheit in one day, and kind of stayed there. So we had a pretty big drop.
What do people in Germany think of the energy crisis? It's a big assumption here that no one's going to have energy during the winter. Is that true?
But apparently, the storages in Germany and Austria, they are full now. So I don't know how they managed, but they were able to collect as much gas from, I don't know, mainly from Norway, I think.
Algeria?
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe Algeria only delivers to Spain and Portugal, but maybe the liquid version, the LNG thing.
Yeah, I mean, they were shipping it across to France with
Okay.
LNG.
So Algeria does LNG, because I think it's technically quite complicated to put gas into LNG. So I don't know. I'm actually, but we were very scared not to have enough gas, and all our energy bills, they kind of doubled and tripled. Actually, mine too. Mine is like 2.5 times as last year.
Yeah, my electric bill tripled too. It went from $15 to $42.
Per
No, total. And I
month.
looked at it, yeah, for a month.
Okay.
And I looked at it, and like $10 of that was them looking at the meter, and then $10 was various taxes, and $20 of the $40 was the actual electricity.
But how come you don't have the energy crisis?
We do. Our price is going up. they just, instead of shortages, just people are just paying more.
So you don't
I mean,
have
I
shortages.
try and use as little as possible, but
I think this is manufactured. I think they just needed a reason to make us save energy and to just manipulate us in a mindset of this whatever this kind of Klaus Schwab carbon world order.
Like a scarcity mindset they want to instill
Yeah,
in people.
exactly. Scarcity, that's the right word. Yeah, you're right. Because actually, I think we have a enough energy. I don't know how they manage, but we have enough. It's sad because I would find it great if we would have a cheap gas from Russia and cheap oil from Russia, because the Soviet Union delivered us apparently always very properly with gas, and they never cut it off. But now we pay whatever 3 or 4 times just to punish Russia. And the PR is so well done. All the news, they are all on the same page. So there's I think 3/4 of the population now hate Russia, and they are happy to pay more for their gas and for their energy. So coming back to your question, actually, Walrus, we are on the transatlantic mindset totally. I'm one of the very few who is against it. So I think it's like only 1/4 is still resisting this global homo NATO stuff.
that's bizarre, because Russia is not anywhere near the geopolitical threat that the Soviet Union was to the NATO countries in Europe.
Absolutely. And we used to be neutral, Austria used to be neutral. And we
Yes.
have now a conservative government, which is together with the Green Party. The Green Party is very, very strong in Europe. And I remember 10 years ago, George Soros, he wrote like an op-ed, or how you call it, this opinion piece on some big European newspapers. I don't know, Süddeutsche and some others. And he said the only chance for Europe to survive is if the Green Party has more power. And he was right. Somehow they managed to put the Green Party almost everywhere in power. And the Green Party now here, they are the most bellicistic, the most war hawk party you can imagine. They want to send, like the German Green Party, they are totally crazy. They talk 24 hours, they talk about sending weapons to Ukraine, and they are very angry that the Germans don't send their Leopard 2 tanks in Ukraine yet. So the Green Party is an olive green party who is totally, we call it bellicistic, and so everything is a bit crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's strange. As I remember, that was always considered to be that there was going to be a peace dividend. So when the Soviet Union collapsed, right, it was rather than looking for a new enemy, the idea was that resources could be turned inward rather than used for a conflict in the Cold War. But that plan was annulled real fast.
Totally agree. Yeah.
But the thing is, there really isn't any geopolitical competitor that's comparable to the Soviet Union. Even then, when you look at things like the economic base, the Soviet Union was considerably weaker than the U.S. and Europe and Japan put together. But the thing is, I think there is a lot of money to be made if you can have a permanent enemy. Our equivalent to Goldstein in 1984. So They kind of just have to manufacture them up, even if they don't exist. So, but you end up with this very silly thing that every tin pot dictator has the same potential for conquering his neighbors as Germany under the National Socialists did, and that's just not true.
Well, they've pushed so much money around with this Ukraine thing. It's crazy. Even Canada now, I saw the other day, is selling Ukraine bonds and everything else. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Really? Well, it's a large Ukrainian population in Canada, and particularly in Alberta.
Yeah, true, but there's a large French population as well, and we don't sell bonds for France. It's, you know,
Yeah, but the Quebecois have split from France politically. I don't think the Ukrainians in Alberta have split from the government in Kiev. I mean, really, you have kind of it's all run by the Western Ukrainians who had been under Austrian and then Polish rule, but basically the people that were in exile under Bandera before he was assassinated by the KGB, and particularly Yaroslav Stetsko, who was in exile in the U.S. as the head of the ABN.
yeah, I'm sure they do still have ties, and it's interesting to think about. In 20 years, I'm sure the Sikhs here, nothing against them per se, but they're a real cohesive bloc. So I'm sure that's really going to change politics as well. The mass immigration. Trudeau wants to bring in 500,000 a year or something.
Well, Kevin Michael Grace is the expert on the Sikh question.
I saw that.
He's always bringing it up. But wasn't there a big incident where there was a Sikh terrorist bombing of an airliner that somehow involved Canada?
Yeah, it was a Air Canada, no, Air India flight, but it was coming from Canada. Wasn't it going to Ireland or something?
Yeah, well, one of the Sikh separatists blew it up, right?
Well, that is funny because when I was a kid, like 10 years old, they were considered the fifth column terrorist faction in Canada, and because they didn't want to integrate, and these days, who would blame them? But they had their own little communities, and some of them were really fanatical. Religiously, there were some killings. Like they would, I think one of them was whether people sat on the floor at church or not during meals. So, these days they've completely changed their image just through time. They're all as nice as can be, but they're absolutely everywhere. And
they were very pissed off when Indira Gandhi ordered the occupation of the Golden Temple in Amritsar.
Oh, I don't know all the history.
I think this was in '84, but their holy site, the most holy site for the Sikhs in India, was occupied by the Indian Army.
Well, they're allowed to, even if their religion is very spiritual and mystical. They are like a literal warrior.
Yeah, they were created as a way in which to oppose the Muslim rule in the Northwest there. So
Yeah,
kind of they incorporate some elements of Islam, but they're basically a militarized version of Hinduism.
yeah. Well, they're allowed to carry around a dagger.
The little dagger, yeah. It's one of the 5 Ks. I can't remember what the dagger is called.
Kirpan, I believe.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because they got 5 Ks, Khalsa. Supposedly, if they take that dagger and dab it into halal food, it's no longer halal.
Hey, welcome, Nayaz.
Hey, how's everyone doing?
We're all alive.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, all right. All right. How's your Thanksgiving going, Otto? I missed the first half.
Oh, well, okay. So if you go to the bottom here, where I have the links, so I have a new academic article published. It's basically the paper I gave in Moscow 3 years ago, but it's been published by Kulturní studia in both English and Czech translation out of Prague. And then there's this new Twitter-like thing on Academia EDU. I'm not sure how it worked, but they're supposed to interview me about it next week and give me a $150 Amazon gift card. And I had a peer review of a journal article on Soviet Ukraine I did Monday. So,
Well, that's I don't know, output at least higher than before, right? You're getting
yeah.
some notice from institutions.
Sort of, not really, but and then yeah, that's about it. Still physically getting used to the job as a janitor.
Yeah, I was surprised you said that it's cold as hell down in Carlsbad.
It is. Well, right now it's not too bad, but it's been like 28 to 32 degrees all day for the
Really?
last week. Yeah.
That's I would have never thought that. That's amazing. I think of Carlsbad as like a Saudi Arabia of America or something like that. But
More
holy
like
crap!
no, it's not like Saudi Arabia. I wish.
Oh yeah,
No, we're more like the Kurdistan. It would get really cold in the winter and really hot in the summer.
all right, all right. Uh, yeah, no, it's how's your thing? What'd you do today?
Uh, Not much. I ate some pizza. uh, did some reading.
Well, yeah, I bought your book, so
Have you read it?
yeah, I'm actually going through it right now. You know what's one of the funny thing is that I'm so online that I'm so used to reading like PDFs, right? 'Cause I've had this problem like where if you start reading books, you start like go to the end of the book and you think like, holy shit, I got like 200 pages to go. So it's like it's so I was thinking of reading it in like PDF forms, basically like chapter at a time. My attention span is like gone to shits. I got the same problem reading any kind of book now. If it's a nonfiction, it's like shit. So
It goes pretty fast.
well, it's not
The
that big, and it's also like just stats. It's like bunch of stats. It's like sad
some,
stats
yeah.
after sad
It's
stats.
when you get to the meat of the book, there's a lot because that's what's in the primary sources. I talk about in the beginning what there is and what there isn't.
Okay.
But you can't write about what there isn't. I mean, this the Dunkelziefer can't really be expressed very well.
Okay, I got you. I was thinking that in terms of like Ernst Nolte, right? Because thing is, your book essentially it's kind of like let's say could be a base for uh, you know uh, maybe motivation, right? If you use Nolte's idea, then for or not motivation, maybe like a an idea for revenge or something. Hey, Walrus, man, where'd you go? Oh, damn it! I don't want to suck up all the oxygen here. Shit. Um,
I don't know what happened.
yeah, so I was just thinking that, it's like it basically could be a base for, let's say, an argument for, why, what happened, like why the mid-century Germans, the way they reacted to, certain peoples, right? So this is,
Well, I mean, that would be a different book, but I mean, Yeah, mainly there
Your
are
your
there
stats kind of
are
converge with it, right? So go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
but if you there's a couple articles by colleagues of mine, Samuel Sinner and Eric Schmaltz, where they talk about Karl Stump and Georg Leibbrandt, and these particularly Stump, who was in the SS. They're both Black Sea Germans from Ukraine. Were kind of founders of German from Russia historical research in the United States. But Leibbrandt was at Wannsee and was under Rosenberg, who was from Estonia. But they did a lot of work with the National Socialist on the Russian Germans and were keyed in Leibbrandt particularly through Rosenberg and Stump was had his Sonderkommando in the SS. So they had some influence there. And if you look at the order to deport Jews from Germany and Austria into the ghettos of Lodz, Riga, and Minsk in September of 1941, they take place as a result of Alfred Rosenberg demanding them as retaliation for the deportation of the Volga Germans, which is announced on 28th of August, 1941, and starts on 3rd of September. So about 2 weeks after the deportation of the Volga Germans begin, there's a retaliatory deportation eastward of Jews.
Mm. If you were to play devil's advocate, like, to what extent do you think, like, how much of the thought process went into mid-century Germans for them to kind of like have their views against a certain group, right? And as a kind of like ideological enemy. Like, to what extent do you think a lot of these anti-German actions that happened post World War One, right? To based on Nolte, I mean, that's if you were to play devil's advocate, like,
Well, they
is it
were
could
well
be
known. I mean, the 32-33 famine, there's an organization in Germany called Bruder in Not, or Brother in Need, and it raises money for starving ethnic Germans in the Soviet Union. But one of the people that donates to it was President Hindenburg. So, I mean, you can't get much more, high status ranking in the Weimar and early, National Socialist era than President Hindenburg, who was a World War One hero.
Mm. Yeah, no, because basically, like, if you um, like talk to or like, because I've been in kind of reading up on kind of some of the PDFs that people postulate that essentially, Ars Nolta and people like them are basically apologists for you know uh, the goose stepping guys of back in the mid centuries, stuff like that. So, and so I was just thinking, to what extent that this is kind of maybe a
But he's not
whitewashing
really
of.
an apologist. He calls it an Asiatic action, an emulation of the Asiatic
Yeah.
deeds in the Soviet Union. So he's not putting a stamp of approval on these actions. He's quite clearly saying that they are unusual and barbaric, but provoked by the extremism in the East.
Yeah, but I mean, these guys are ideological in nature, right? The people who are kind of critiquing that, because if you were to logically analyze something that happened, especially something that's kind of like deified, as an event, right? You kind of like trying to like look at objectively, with like like a value free judgment, right? That's kind of like obviously no go, because if you were to do so, you're kind of breaking down, one of the religious pillars of post World War II, Second World War, or like the post-war consensus, right? So I mean, it makes sense. I mean, why did it chimp out at if it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not, like objectively to them it makes sense because you're attacking a central pillar of their way to rationalize whatever the hell they do.
The strange thing is, Nolte's idea of the fascism in Italy and German National Socialism as being reactions against I guess the kind of a trend starting with the Enlightenment, going to the French Revolution and World War One, the Bolshevik Revolution, and then the communist uprisings, particularly in Bavaria. This when he first came up with this idea in the early 1960s, 1963, the German version of what will become, in English translation, Three Faces of Fascism.
Hmm.
He was supported by most of the leftists. They thought that this was a great counter to the idea of totalitarianism, saying that structurally the Soviet Union and National Socialist Germany were very similar and that the ideology wasn't all that important.
Mm. Um, yeah, but the thing is that it kind of changes, though. I mean, if you were to think of like post Cold War left, the nature of especially pre 60s, pre 70s, they're in many ways, if not maybe 180 of what the left is today. I mean, definitely it's very different in nature than what it was back then, right? I mean, true, there's that like embryonic sense of like
Well,
what.
there's a huge change, I guess, in the 60s, particularly Marcuse with his writings, where they basically abandoned the idea of class struggle. They abandoned the idea
Communist
of
superstructure.
the working class as the revolutionary dynamic in history.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but like in many ways, like they're replacing the whole communist superstructure with like something that's like what we see today, right? As like woke or whatever. This it's kind of like almost you kind of like taking the innards out and putting a new innards in, so to speak.
Yeah, except woke ain't building any factories. At least Stalin built factories.
Yeah, yeah. But hey, woke they build HR departments and they build recruitment centers and diversity inclusion
Now,
and
this is like
humanities degrees.
this is like when the Uzbek leadership told Stalin, we cannot eat cotton, right? When he ordered them to stop growing wheat and just grow cotton. All right. I feel kind of the same way. We cannot eat HR decrees.
Well, if they're fat and there's a lot of if we're famine, so if some people go cannibal, hey, you got a bunch of because you got some fatties in HR departments, not too good looking, or you get a lot of like basically fucked up women in HR. I mean, it's a very female. I mean, obviously, it's a very female. How should I say, like centric or female minded position, right? It's basically a fill-in position for mother hens to make sure that everything's done, the way that daddy whatever, they're the way that the consensus tells them to do, right? So I mean, the only thing you can do is get him fired, like Elon did, right? Fire like fucking 90% of them. Problem
Which
gone.
shows that what were they doing? I mean, if you can have the platform work on 10% of the labor force, what was the other 90% doing?
Just it's just a filling job, man. What the hell? This is
I mean,
liberalism at
when
work.
the morning janitor where I work quit and they called me, right? There was a half a day, like literally just a half a day without this one guy, and everything had already fallen apart.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you can like fire 90% of people and nothing happens in one situation, another situation, a rather, you would think low level cog quits and it's all chaos until he can be replaced.
Yeah, but you gotta also understand, like, from a competitive perspective, like, the bigger the HR, the more the whatever DEI and mumbo jumbo, right? The more that you're cutting out like potential competitors. Like, like when my position, I mean, I don't want to delve too much, but I was a trading desk like lead, and most of my trouble wasn't from the guys that were under me, right? So because it's also a very niche kind of a skill set. So we're like, in a way, like it's like Elon and his like bunch of nerds that working for him now, right? So it's many ways like that's the demographic that I'm working with. But all my trouble comes from the top. Like it's just stupid ass, like making like reports and like this and go to meetings about some stupid shit has nothing to do with work, right? But the reason they have it, partially the reason they have it is the big business is obviously going for it, because if I were to make my own little company, and I simply can't compete, because I gotta
Well,
hire
that's
like all
true.
these other people to get stick to all the stupid laws, right? That's a big.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
it puts up extreme barriers for competition from small and medium-sized enterprises. That's a lot of the environmental regulations in the United States. They exist solely to keep the government contracts for those type of bids to solely to the large corporations who can afford to have somebody permanently fill out all the legal paperwork.
Yeah, yeah, and also that also kind of drives, if you kind of look back, and it kind of goes with converges with centralization, right? With all these consolidation of big companies, like if you think of like any service or business to think of like in the last 20, 30, 40 years, right? It's like you have like it's kind of like the same thing with the internet. Like everything gets bought out by three, four, five companies, right? And using this as a way to like um, basically buy up smaller competitors over a period of time. They have a monopoly essentially. But the other side of it is the government also, basically um, all this dictates. They have like one, nodes to go through, right? So they don't have to go through like 10,000 little companies. They just go through, like, say, I don't know. I mean, you think of a big giant corporation like JP Morgan or something like that. Hey, do this. Hey,
ADM,
huh? Go ahead.
ADM, the agribusiness,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or like Conagra. Like you have like
or I'm trying to think of the other big corporations. But even like for consumer products, something like R.J. Reynolds. I mean,
mhm.
they started out just as a tobacco company, but then they bought out Miller Brewing and a whole bunch of other, I think Nabisco and a whole bunch of other consumer corporations.
Yeah, yeah. Like you think of, okay, like Yum Brands, like they control like Pizza Hut and
Taco
Taco
Bell,
Bell. Yeah, all these
Kentucky
companies.
Fried Chicken.
Yeah, everything.
Not everything. They don't control McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's.
McDonald's
The
is its own separate thing.
McDonald's is a known company, and it's my best share in my depot.
what? Sorry, what was Wiener? What did you
The
say?
McDonald's share
Uh-huh.
is the best I own.
Oh,
I
you
bought
own
McDonald's and I
McDonald's?
bought Tesla. Tesla is very bad. McDonald's is a very good cash cow for me. So
Oh, okay,
go
okay.
to McDonald's, please.
Uh,
Do you get a discount? You should go there to the local McDonald's. Hey man, I'm a owner.
Yeah, but
oh, what is it? Somebody was confused. We have this chain from California, Wiener Schnitzel, which doesn't sell Wiener Schnitzel, but It's basically just a hot dog chain, but it's been around for a while in the west of the U.S. But some I think Austrians get confused. Well, why
Yeah.
is it called Wiener Schnitzel when it
I
has
got
no schnitzel
confused.
and nothing to do with Wien?
You said I had a what did you say? A fried sausage and a sauerkraut at Wiener Schnitzel, and
Yeah.
I understood that you had both dishes, and I thought here you can either have the sausage or you have Wiener Schnitzel. You
No,
don't
no, there's
need
no
to
Wiener
protest
Schnitzel
the
at
dish.
Wiener Schnitzel. Wiener Schnitzel is the name of
Yeah,
the franchise, and it
and
has
then I found out.
yeah, and when he first put it up, they had it with the article, but they had the article wrong. That's how bad this was. So let me see if we get the history of it.
I checked it on Wikipedia. It's rather
Yeah,
interesting, but
yeah.
I wasn't impressed by the menu. It didn't look really so
It's not
delicious.
that great of food. It's just it's hot dogs. It's a very it's
It's
it,
yeah, it's American fast food, man. What do you expect?
it's from California, like everything else.
Is McDonald's really big in Austria? Like, it's do
Yeah,
people really
yeah,
go?
yeah, yeah. I don't know how many they have here in Vienna, but I'm sure they have like 10
Nah, that's not much.
We have
10
two in
McDonald's,
Carlsbad.
2 million people, and I'm sure there are like five Burger King, and there's a Subway now, a few Subways, and I'm not sure if there's Kentucky Fried Chicken. I'm not even sure. But no, we have it all. Global homeway everywhere.
You
So
don't have any currywurst shops?
Currywurst is in Germany, but we have this Würstelstand. We have this special Austrian sausage with the bread.
There
and
used to be a currywurst and bratwurst place in Bishkek across from the Wefa Mall. It was pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it's currywurst is Berlin or so in northern
Yeah, it
Germany.
was invented after the war because they had
That's very
shortages of
nice.
everything.
I love it, but you don't get it here. Not yet.
Mm. So I guess I'm not global enough. But what's currywurst? Is it
It's like sausage with the curry and ketchup sauce. So it was invented by some woman during the hard times after the war. So
mm.
a steam fried sausage cut into bite-sized chunks with a curry ketchup sauce based on spiced ketchup or tomato paste topped with curry powder.
And the sausage is without the skin, without the
So the woman who invented it was named Herta Hoover in 1949. She obtained ketchup and curry powder from British soldiers, mixed the ingredients with other spices, and poured it over grilled pork sausage.
Okay.
And then started a street stand selling it at Charlottenburg in Berlin. It became popular with construction workers.
Mm.
Charlottenburg.
Yes.
I think it was the wife of the Kaiser? I'm not sure.
I think so. There's a plaque there for her for inventing currywurst in 1949.
That sounds very American.
Yeah.
No, well,
British curry. We didn't have curry before we lost the war.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And a plaque for a woman who invented a food.
It's when you're starving to death, you gotta do what you gotta do. If curry powder and ketchup's all you got to put on the sausage, that's what you got.
Well, I mean, how about this then? How about a statue to the guys who were like digging cabbage out from the ground? That's probably what help people survive more than, like, I don't know, these because it's like the hearty foods, right? I mean, whenever you go through famine, you're not like eating curry mumbo jumbo. I mean, it's afterward, right?
All I know is that the curry powder and ketchup works as a pretty good sauce on the bratwurst too.
Mm.
It was
Yeah.
one of those things.
I
It
tell
could
my
have
mom-
could have been one of the millions of failures of combinations, and nobody would remember it.
Yeah, that's I'll tell my mom to make some, see what happens. Oh, when I start grilling again, tell her to make the sauce.
Here's something. Have you ever heard of taxi teller?
No.
Plate
Do
of fries served with currywurst, shashlik sauce, mayonnaise, gyros meat, and tzatziki.
That's some international right there.
That's why the taxi drivers are eating it, I guess.
Holy crap! So that way, like the Turks feel like they're at home, and the Germans and everyone feels at home.
Yeah, pretty much. And there is a Deutsches Currywurst Museum in Berlin. It's been open since 2009.
Holy crap, man! It's like
It closed in 2018, though, permanently.
huh?
Only
Wow.
9 years of I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I would think in a multicultural global world, right? Probably got enough people coming through. Put some stands there and get some money coming in.
Uh, I don't know. All I know is that it's one of the foods that was invented in Germany after the war, so it's recent, but
Well, there's one popular ethnic food in Germany. I think they invented maybe in Berlin or in Western Germany. It's called Döner Kebab.
oh yeah, so that's actually Turkish in
That's
origin.
Turkish, but apparently the one they have here in Central Europe is not the really original Döner Kebab. It's like they have this kind of shashlik-like big stick, and then they have the meat there, and they fry it, and then they put it in a kind of bun, but it's not a McDonald's bun. It's just like a proper bread, and they put lettuce and garlic sauce and like this blue or red cabbage and stuff, and I really like it. And I think that's the most popular to go food in
I think
Germany.
that's pretty popular through most of Europe. I ate a lot of
Oh.
those in London.
Oh, really? And how they what's the
They
how
call
do
it
they call
doner
them?
kebab, and it's run usually by Turkish or Kurdish,
Oh,
sometimes Arab immigrants. But yeah, it's not exactly the same as the Middle East. It's been kind of Europeanized for sales.
I thought that was only in the German-speaking countries. So
No, it's spread. It certainly was pretty popular in London when I was there, and I'm told it's popular in Scandinavia as well.
now I'm disappointed.
But it probably did start because of the Turkish guest workers in Central Europe, in Germany and Austria.
Yeah. But Otto, I have one question because I bought
Yeah.
a book by Nikolai Starikov. It's a Russian political scientist.
Okay.
Nikolai Starikov, and it's in German. It's called Wer zwang Hitler Stalin anzugreifen? In English, it would be like Who forced Hitler to attack Stalin? Have you ever heard about it?
No.
Or do you know what I could mean by it?
I guess it's going off of the icebreaker,
Suvorov?
a Suvorov theory that the Soviets were preparing to attack Germany.
No,
So the
no,
Germans
actually the other way
preemptively?
around. The other way around. He said like Hitler was nobody, and it's not true that German industry supported him. They only did it in the 30s, and all the money who he got in the 20s was like Anglo-American money, and there were special American and in English people who picked him because he's a very good orator, and they needed somebody to attack. More or less, his claim is the English and the American. I can't distinguish them, and maybe the English were the prime people then. They needed somebody to attack Russia or Soviet Union because something went out of hand when the Bolsheviks didn't behave as they should. And especially when
Uh-huh.
Stalin took over and Trotsky was made disappear, the
Yeah.
Anglo-Americans had to do something, and then they sort of created this monster out of Germany and just led him to attack the Soviet
Yeah,
Union.
that's sounds like a rehash of the old kind of Stalinist historiography as to that the Germans were just part of a larger imperialist plot against the motherland of socialism.
So what do you is there something to it or not so much?
I don't think there's much to it. I mean, obviously, there's all kinds of, like you can find, lots of American companies that were investing in National Socialist Germany. Had some sort of economic interest in their success, but I really don't see the Operation Barbarossa being manipulated. I mean, yeah, there were people like Churchill who I think thought it would be a good idea if the Soviets and Germans fought each other till there was none left. But I'm having trouble conceiving that the decision to invade the Soviet Union was anything other than directly from Hitler for pretty much various reasons that have already been stated.
I think also, like, if you look back, all the different partisan groups, to a certain extent, like, you have all kind of interest, and like, if it's in the geopolitical interest or practical interest, they will help them. But the bigger question is that are those help, like, the help they receive from whatever America or someone else, is that instrumental to them to getting to power? I mean, that's a separate question. Like, when people say, like, if you think of, for example, in Middle East, like, the biggest, most successful enemy of a certain country is Hezbollah, right? But most people don't know, like, Hezbollah got its funding, the first beginning seed funding, some of it came from Israel because they were using them against, like, other, like, PLO and
Are you talking about Hamas?
no, Hezbollah too. They also got funding.
Okay, but Hezbollah is not that big. It's in Lebanon.
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't say
when
it's
it
a huge
first,
thing, but they've been quite successful.
yeah, yeah.
But I would still say they're relatively small.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Uh,
at max any given point they have 5,000 to 10,000 on the ground. But they started with 200 guys, right? It's basically defending the Shia enclave. But that's the thing. It's like, was it instrumental to Hezbollah becoming so big and strong? I mean, I don't know, not big, but I mean,
No, I mean, what was instrumental is
yeah,
that all the other Lebanese factions were just totally hopeless. So
correct.
even being far from perfect, because Hezbollah could actually accomplish some things effectively, it became a great alternative to the people who could accomplish nothing whatsoever.
Yeah, but I mean, also there's something to it, right? I mean, if you look at the structure, their organization, their leadership, they are on, like, a totally different level than all these other guys, and also to a large extent they're independent. That's the other thing. It's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, their organization, a lot of it was inspired by the Iranian success. So they copied successful elements of what had happened in Iran.
Yeah, well, what I mean by that is, like, their leadership comes from inside, right? So in other words, that their core, it's not like they have outside or they were dependent on outside um, help to the extent that, let's say, Hamas or PLO or people like them did, and they didn't have to. They were not really part of, like, this bigger local. They don't care about, like, Saudi whatever, internal politics, where, say, Hamas and these guys were more vulnerable to these other people's politics. So I mean, there's a lot of things that went into their success, but
Yeah, but I would suspect that there are elements of Hezbollah who are concerned about Iranian internal politics because it could affect
oh yeah.
the assistance that they receive.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. But even if the Iranians
And
leave,
they're
right?
obviously not concerned about Saudi Arabia because they're Shiite and not Sunni, and there's a considerable conflict between the Shiites as led by Iran and the Sunnis as led by the KSA.
Yeah. So yes. However, though, let's say Iranians are gone. Uh, given that like their leaders and their where they get their kind of like their, how should I say, their core, right? Their ideological base is internal. Like they're getting help from outside that helps them, but they don't need outside help or direction, or organization, right? Or to execute their plans or have their own direction, right? So
Yes.
in that sense, that's different, like than some of these other groups, because let's say Hamas is like a joke now, but let's say some of these other new groups that you see, right? Especially the terrorist types, these are all
You
like,
mean the ones that are obviously, controlled by the Mukhabarat in Qatar or someplace?
yeah, exactly. I mean, all these guys, the other people are kind of like extensions of big, some other power, whereas Hezbollah has their own internal logic, right? Their own internal like um organization. They don't need other helps to survive, or like have their own plans. um there's a bit, that's they're more sovereign, so to speak.
Well, they aren't the only organization like that. They also tend to be the Shiite organizations tend to be more self-sufficient.
True.
Hezbollah is probably the most advanced uh, organization outside Iran, but the Shiites in Iraq also are fairly well um, self-dependent, self-sufficient.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, I get, going back to basically what I was saying is that like I mean, when people say like basically this guy's a Fed or that guy's a Fed because they got money, or that guy got money, um, two questions is that, okay, to what extent these external help, did they really help them, or was it instrumental to, let's say, Group X, their success? And the other side of it is like, to what extent these people who, let's say, got American money or some other like funding from somewhere else, some sponsor, to what extent are these groups actually are using the sponsors, right? In other words, that this is something that's like symptomatic of America's empire, where all these other guys on the ground have the time they're using America for cash, right? Like, I mean, you think of Afghanistan. Like, I mean, one of the funnier thing is that nobody knows how much money actually got poured into it, because nobody knows where the money went. And the enemy is like tomorrow's ally, and they're like giving you bodyguards, right? Then the bodyguards blow you up or whatever. I mean, understand, like, it's kind of like one of those things, kind of going back to these kind of narratives where people look back retroactively and they want to like delegitimize their ideological enemies and say, oh, this guy got money or that guy got money from, like in this case, America. American industrials did, there was business done, but was really instrumental to a certain person's rise or that group's rise, right? And this is just like, retroactive like narrative that people make, to delegitimize their enemies, basically. I mean, a lot of it don't make any sense, because you can make the argument that this, mid-century Germans were actually using other people's cash to buttress their own position, right? And this is
Yeah,
actually,
we're getting. Yeah, I suppose you could, but I don't.
they were not getting that much.
Yeah, I don't think they were getting that much.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think a lot of when they talk about industrialists, collaborating with the National Socialists in the 1930s and 40s, like what else were they going to do? That's the government in power. They either play with them or by their rules, or they get shut down. I mean,
Yeah, that's other thing. I mean, the industrial governmental, like I guess, like private public whatever partnership or quasi something like that. Where I mean, if you're Group or Rheinmetall, like I mean, what the what are you gonna do? Like everyone's connected to the West because you get business that way. So it's like these kind of stuff. It is kind of like splitting hairs to make it look like you want to frame your argument in a certain way. So you just like make up stuff. This is this in a way like this is basically like what you see on modern America, right? In modern global homopolitics. Um, tomorrow today's friend is tomorrow's enemy, and you kind of like build up a case. So if anyone goes against, like it's like you got Trump's money or you got Steve Bannon's money or some shit like that, right? So
Well, maybe we should just, have government by the purists. So, like, he who has received no corrupt money. So that would be me, and will be put in power.
no, I'm the purist.
I think you've got some corrupt money.
No, hell no. I got zero.
And all that financing stuff, that Bitcoin stuff. I saw what happened with the bank man.
The Bankman. Yeah. Hey, listen. I wish I knew Bankman. I'll probably try to like siphon off something from him.
He got no more money. He lost all the billions. They all disappeared.
Yeah, he got $3. Someone did the math, so it was like he's worth literally.
But he's got that beautiful girlfriend he shares with all those other guys, Caroline.
Yeah, I was like, God, man, this guy is on top of the world, and this is what he can't get, and then he's sharing this thing to like, oh my God.
Well, I'd just give it away without using it if that was what I had. Jesus Christ, who wants that?
Yeah. I was like, holy shit, that's like, what is that, 2 or 3? Like Down syndrome Jane? Shit.
I don't know. It just whatever. It's so very bizarre and weird and strange. I don't want to get too into it.
You could, think about it though. It could be like maybe a part of where he's renting her out as basically kind of like a alliance building. Like if you were to think of like back in the old times where you would get your daughter married to someone else, some prince or whatever, alliances through marriage, and I don't know, maybe it's kind of like some bizarre Epstein level, kind of like you renting out your like really ugly girlfriend to other rich people so you can do a favor or some shit.
I'm going to go with Monroe here. That's just gross. I think that's the way to.
Yeah.
I think we'll just explain it as that. Yeah, I don't pretend to understand it, and I'm not even interested in trying to delve into it. But yeah, obviously the whole. I mean, even like the idea of non-alignment from the 1961 conference basically was, how can we get money from both Moscow and Washington, D.C., as the poor post-colonial states in Africa and Asia, and the odd man out being Tito in Yugoslavia, who'd already got in trouble with Stalin in '48, was trying to milk the U.S. for everything he could as kind of a what's the word, maverick communist, independent communist. But you see it more with Nehru in India, and Nkrumah in Ghana, and Sukarno in Indonesia, and finally Nasser in Egypt. Kind of the big five there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you think of a line movement. It's kind of look the same, and and what's if you think about it though, the biggest, the most I guess successful of those out of all the powers is really China. When you think about it, they played their cards the best.
They were never a member of the NAM.
They were not, but they were. If you think about it, like they're even more, because they're essentially independent, right? So since like early '60s, more or less, they've been like on their own, and they've been masterful at playing each other off.
They they got isolated from all of the Afro-Asian People Solidarity Organization meetings. The rest of the post-colonial world going with the Soviets, who were also a member because of the Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan being in Asia. And then during the Cultural Revolution in 1966, they withdrew their diplomatic staff from every country in the world except Egypt. So for a while, the only Chinese embassy that operated was in Cairo.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's kind of that's kind of the thing. Like, if you think of who's the most successful, like, it's really them. Looking back, like, in many ways, you can see like China just taking advantage of other people's mistakes, right? Like, if you think like, okay, so India plays both sides, but India is India, so they all, it's like, I don't know. I have a very bad opinion of them, but diplomatic, in that sense. But yeah, I mean, it's that if they basically got help, and the CCP basically was able to kick out foreign influences. They were able to consolidate the state, right? And they got all the goods, they got all the industrial potential, like, and basically organize their state. And then in due time, they kind of flip to the American model, and then they use the American model to make this state more efficient, right? To make the industry more efficient. And so in a weird way, they learn from both sides. And so thus, looking back, essentially it's like it's kind of like they're climbed out from the bottom of their
But I mean, I
civilization.
don't think it's as deliberate as you think. If you
It's
read
not.
somebody
It's not.
like Dakota, who actually was my he taught me a methods class when I did my master's at SOAS, but he's written a couple good books on modern China. But the one he wrote on the Cultural Revolution, he talks about basically the Cultural Revolution destroyed the Communist Party's authority over the rural economy. And when Deng Xiaoping came to power, he tried to reassert it, but it failed. So he just said, you know what, I'm just going to go with it. And this is where the economic reformers were basically the loss of control of the economy from the Cultural Revolution. They just got an official stamp because their attempts to reassert control that had existed previously failed.
Yeah.
In part because all the cadres were gone. They weren't in the countryside anymore, or as far as ruling the little villages.
Yeah. However, though, if you like in the aggregate, if you look in the big picture, like, compare that to, say, someone like Tito or like Nehru, right? Or the Indians. These people try to like explicitly go for this, like, trying to play both sides against each other, right? And they still failed, in my opinion. Whereas the Chinese, yeah, sure, there were times when like they lost control. Like, for example, a lot of the like you said, like Deng Xiaoping's policies were just because like it was going with like whatever's the strong horse, so to speak, right? And kind of go and kind of copying also like the other Asian economies, right? Seeing what's successful and trying kind of copying them. And so basically that's different though. Like, yeah, it's true. It's not directly. They didn't like have a plan of playing both sides for like 50 years, but it's just that it worked out that way, and it worked out to be much more, successful than Indians or like or Yugos or whatever, some of these other people. I mean, that's kind of like I suppose you could say there's a lot of irony there, and also at the end of the Cold War, it's the Chinese that's been like there, like, to take advantage of like the lessons to be learned. So it's a weird thing. It's like America and Soviets really helped the Chinese become the next superpower. Anyway, I don't want to. Is Vina want to talk? I mean, I don't want to take up all the oxygen here.
You have all the oxygen always taken, but it's fine.
Oh no! I wanted you to have some
I
oxygen.
think it's your personality to take all the oxygen, but I think Otto is a very generous person, and he can bear that. Me too.
Oh, no, you guys go ahead. You guys go ahead.
No,
That's
no, I
fine.
mean, but you're interesting things you bring up with China. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think Mao was educated in America, wasn't he? Some American, Harvard or something. And then in the 50s, we had this Rockefeller guy. I don't know which one, Nelson Rockefeller, some early
Yeah.
Rockefeller, some young older brother of David Rockefeller. He was there in the 50s and helped to open up China even then.
Yeah.
So I think China is not. I mean, you in in the USA, you know you need your enemies, and then you create your monsters like Russia and Putin, and now China. But without American help and without energy, I mean, China has very little energy. You know, they don't have oil, they don't have gas, they have some coal. They have a lot of coal, and without American engineering and science, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere. So it is a very mutual relationship between the USA and China. So China was very really imperialist, I think.
I'm not sure what the U.S. gets. I mean, we get a lot of cheap consumer goods, but we did fine without the cheap consumer goods before the rise of China, when we had higher quality stuff that lasted.
But your class, the American elites, which is not you. The American elites, they have like an experiment going on there. I mean, they actually now they're doing proper concentration camps, like huge. And maybe you've seen on Twitter now they have some riots. This workers in this Foxconn, they have to be tested against COVID every day, and they get like a big stick put in the nose, which is horrible every day, and everything. So, what's it? Is he gone?
No. What?
So I think the US elites, they just they have this sandbox. They have this sandbox how to suppress and rule a people, and they see it and then they copy it. So I see it as I mean, Schwab and all these people and others too. I just call Schwab because it just reminds me of him. Many Western European and US politicians, they say China is our role model. They adore China. They like the Chinese systems and they hate democracy because they want to keep their power. I mean, I'm sure also Bill Gates and your rich people, they see the model how to suppress like hundreds of millions of people. That has been nicely shown how this is done in China right now. While we speak, they have like this riots and you have this little white man, in China, you see it on Twitter, and they have clubs and they beat those people down. And the riots, they don't have a big chance to overcome this, the official powers. So I see it. I don't see China. I see it differently in a way, but now I lost my track a bit.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Otto?
I don't know. It's possible, I suppose, yeah, that that's all driven by that. But there's still this kind of justification. We benefit from having all this cheap goods from China.
Yeah, but I mean the thing is that kind of a dual relationship. It's the idea is that okay, so if we get cheap goods, that actually has been the case for the last 40 years, right? Um, but the problem is like that's kind of decoupling, and that's part of the reason why even though there was inflation, like cost of goods didn't go up. Now the problem with that is now essentially the Chinese don't just make cheap goods; they make everything, and it's the reason like all of a sudden you're seeing all these Chinese things about like them beating people or whatever. It's partially because now that relationship is getting worse because the Chinese have built up a system that the Soviets never had. That is to say, they have a massive economy backing their power or potential power, right? And that's a big worry. And so that's where the Chimerica model, it did benefit them. But the problem with the elite class is that they can't really detach from it, because at this point they're kind of baked in. Um, is the average like office worker in America gonna make like work 16 hours a day in a factory to make a widget? I mean, hell no, right? So that institutional knowledge is gone, and that that's one of the reasons why there you see a lot of these like media stuff in China, because the anti-Asia and China pivot is real. Like they are concerned about it, about China, because, and this is again like um, they are a threat in ways that the Soviets never were.
Hey,
and
James.
Hey, Jonathan, Wiener, Nayez. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. How's your Bitcoin going? You hear about that Bankman guy?
Yeah, I lost all my money to a Jewish dude from MIT. Yeah, that's about as likely as the sun rising in the west.
All right. That's that's awesome. How's your day going?
I'm on call right now, so I'm waiting for the phone to ring. Yesterday wasn't super busy for me. Like a lot of people push out a lot right before the holiday, like in the afternoon, right before the holiday, to show their boss they did something, and so they can, because they have today off, and a lot of them have tomorrow off as well. So I'm on standby. So I don't know. I could get a call arguably at any moment, but I was just sitting home looking at like YouTube videos of different gun guys doing their Thanksgiving special. Like that's what I'm doing. I'm just waiting for the phone to ring.
I get the day off. They shut down the store.
Well, you have a real job with like set hours, and when you can coordinate with other people, you can strategize how to do your job better.
Maintenance engineer.
One of the things happened yesterday. Like the only job they had for me yesterday was pick up some body parts in Newburgh, New York, right? And the good thing about the body parts is the doctor that's currently doing the surgery right now is this nice Spanish dude or some kind of Hispanic dude. There used to be this horrible Russian doctor named Dr. Thomas, who was like a nightmare. But anyway, so from where I live to get to Newburgh, New York would probably be like 2.5 hours, especially with yesterday's traffic. And they're like, well, can you be there by 5? I'm like, dude, it's 4 o'clock. I'm not going to get there till 7, 7:30. Back and forth. You know what? Meet the guy at his house in Jersey. I said, all right, I'll do that at 7:30. They said, but in the meantime, do these 2 other things. And of course, the timing was a complete disaster. So it's always like going in the wrong direction. Everybody trying to, like I said, just trying to jam everything out before the holiday to look like they did something in front of their boss. No one thinks like, okay, what's the best way to do this? It's just like, how do I appear like I deserve not to be fired? I don't deserve to be fired this week. So, hey, look what I did, boss.
Well, yesterday was a madhouse at the store.
Right. And it all that rolls downhill. It all just rolls downhill. Like, yeah, and even with food, listen, I'm not going to the supermarket until tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be like beautiful day at the supermarket because all the aisles will be empty. The shelves will be completely stocked. It's the best time to go. It's like the day after the snowstorm, the day after the big holiday. That's absolutely the best time to do. Once the crowd is gone, that's the best time to do stuff.
Yeah, we had a number of spills yesterday. 6 pounds of cat food, 2 liters of grape juice.
They sell grape drink in New Mexico? I thought you said there was no diversity there.
It was just grape juice. It was just, like
Walter. Grape juice, proper grape juice. Good, okay. That's
close enough.
I listened to, before I came on, I heard you guys, Wiener and Nayez, talking about China and the Chinese suppression of their population, with the COVID restrictions. And I've been seeing such things that now mind you, if you're Chinese, it sucks, but the infrastructure of what future cities are going to like. The Chinese, I don't know, Wiener, if you said this or not. So if you did, and I'm repeating it, I apologize. But the Chinese government will fly a drone with facial recognition technology over like a park, and if you are walking through on the pathway in the park and you deviate from the pathway and you walk across the grass, which you're not supposed to do, they use facial recognition technology to automatically fine you, whatever the civil fine is, for walking on the grass. They automatically debit that from your bank account, which I thought that was like that is the ultimate authoritarian move right there. You don't need a cop to write you a ticket. They just instantly just take the money out of your account, and you learn your lesson real quick, because if you don't, you end up starving and homeless. And starvation and homelessness is what drives everything. Naya is saying Americans are not going to work 16 hours in factories. They used to work 16 hours in factories. Children used to work in factories. That was done before. It will likely be done again. The reason why all the factories in America were moved to China was because Wall Street told them to do it, right? Wall Street demands 15% higher profits year over year each business quarter. So the fourth business quarter of 2022, they expect your profits to be 15% higher than they were in 2021, which is 15% higher than in 2020, and on and on and on. And in order to do that, you have to pay lower wages, you have to use lower quality, you have to cut a whole bunch of things. And when you can't cut anymore, you lock out the unions, you do a bunch of other stuff, you just ship everything to China, where people work for $1.50 an hour instead of $15 an hour. Okay. So, and that'll work, it has worked for the last 30 years or so. But the manufacturing may change in the future to where we don't want to wait 6 weeks for something to be shipped to us from Shanghai. You know what I mean? We want it made here. And trust me, in another 20 years, in order to avoid starvation and homelessness, American children will work 16 hours a day in factories. And if they lose their fingers or they get crippled or whatever, they'll be tossed out in the street, just like it was in the 1800s. Now, as you were not aware of the children that used to work at factories.
No, I'm thinking if I should answer that, because we might be then talking for the next 2 hours. No, I don't think so. It's kind of impossible. You're not going to have, you won't, because if you were to, all these factors were to come back, the cost of production actually goes up. And so we're going to have a lot more inflation. And on top of that, the institutional knowledge that you have when you build up an industry, you got to build it up again. A lot of these things, you're not going to have everything that come back. A lot of it's just gone. As simple as that. And the Chinese have the Chinese.
Here's where you go. First off, inflation is not caused by increased production costs. Inflation is caused by too much money chasing too few dollars and services, okay. Right?
The reason it's partially when all these production went in China, they're basically cutting costs at every level. So you have all the margin that was getting lowered. That's why you have essentially there were. It's kind of like it's a fight to the bottom, right? That is possible because in a globalized world, in post Deng Xiaoping, all these labor is coming online. What China brings to the table is a lot of people, okay? A lot of qualified people, competent people, open a lot of navigable ports where you can supply and massively supply the rest of the world. You have a lot of river systems, so therefore you can have a lot of people and a lot of easy shipping. You have a lot of input of capitalists coming from outside Chinese people, right? There's a lot of infrastructure, structural reasons for them, getting all the.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any rivers in China that go out to the rest of the world. Like I understand the Yangtze River is pretty big, and they put hydroelectric dams on it. But I'm pretty sure it doesn't go from China through Europe into South America. I could be wrong about that. My geography's not my best subject.
So China has a lot of deep ports.
Having rivers,
supply.
Having a river or multiple rivers in your country does not necessarily help you unless you're going to use them for hydroelectric power. Yes, Westerners
No,
came
it
in,
does.
like I said.
It's the
Listen to
river
me.
work is
nonstop.
the easiest.
I told you Wall Street insisted that the American factories be shipped overseas to increase profit for publicly traded companies. I said that.
No,
No, I
that's
didn't.
partially part of the reason, but no. I mean, that's part of the reason. Like, I'm not, denying that.
And by the way, where did communist China either pre-Deng Xiaoping or post-Deng Xiaoping just have millions of people with all these super high qualifications, but no factories and no machinery to work on it? They're just standing there. They passed all their little paper tests and they're just waiting around and, to go to the factory, which hasn't even been built yet.
They had the biggest factories in the world, quite literally. They had factories where it was factory cities. Like 500,000 people would live in those cities. What they did with Western help
Did
is
they have them in 1983? They had them in 1983?
Yes, 1983. What they did is basically they updated their systems. They made everything more efficient. They broke it up. That's why it's not. They didn't come out of nowhere. They had shit before. It's communist. It's inefficient as shit. They did exactly the opposite of what the Soviets did. And that's why they're where they are. And so so as of right now, yeah, a lot of the shit you're not gonna get back. The idea that China is some backward shithole, they have
Dude, I don't know. Like, you're eating mushrooms and listening to fucking Alex Jones. I don't know what's wrong with you. I watched TV when I was a kid. All the pictures they would only show television of Beijing. They would only show the Forbidden City and only people on bicycles going round and round and round to say the people are like, look how advanced China is, where everyone has a bicycle. That was China in the 70s. That was China under Deng Xiaoping. You have no idea what you're talking about. You literally
China had the biggest air force in the world. Okay, believe it or not, they were making planes. They were making shit. The difference is they sucked. In due time, they improved things and they made even more industry. That's the difference.
They had the biggest air force in the world that didn't fly anywhere.
Jesus Christ! No, they fought. No, you're wrong. They need to fly fucking in the middle of Middle East to make sure they get a fucking air force. They stayed inside the country. It doesn't matter where they fly or not. Jesus.
Okay, genius. Listen, when they invaded Tibet, did they do it with infantry walking up the mountain, or did they do it by bombing from airplanes?
It doesn't matter. That's a freaking.
Yes, no, it doesn't matter.
50s and 60s.
It does matter because you said they had the biggest air force.
It was post. They just had a civil war.
Why didn't they use all those airplanes to fly to Tibet? Why didn't they use all those airplanes, those great airplanes that you claimed that they had, which they didn't have, and bomb Tibet? Why did they have to walk the soldiers up the mountain?
Because planes
they were
fly.
lazy. Were they eating too much McDonald's in 1950s? They were soft and lazy Westerners. What, dude? You live in some sort of. I don't know what the inside of your head looks like.
You got a 7-Eleven right by your house. Why don't you drive? Why don't you walk to your 7-Eleven? What kind of question is that? Yeah, you're not gonna freaking take a plane, and you need to hold a place. That's not how you fight wars. You need to hold place. In order to hold an area, hold ground, you need manpower, not air power. The Russians are having problem in Ukraine because they don't have enough men, not firepower. It's the same thing.
Really?
Yes.
Ukraine has more men, has a greater population than Russia.
Are you okay?
Ukraine
has more mobilized troops than Russia in Ukraine. In the operational area, Ukraine has more troops than Russia.
Well, where are all the Russian?
What?
Where are all the Russian troops? Do they not know that they're at war right now?
Yeah, all the Russian troops are all over Russia. It's only minority. They have about 20% of the army in Ukraine.
That sounds to me like a losing strategy, by the way. How many guys should you send? 2 out of 10. Just send 2 out of 10. That'll be enough.
Well, yeah, it's a stupid strategy. I mean, yeah. But it may not be because their long-term plan might be different. Their goals are not different than what we consider their long-term plan is.
Their long-term plan is to lose and gain sympathy. Like, so you start a war to lose territory, so people feel bad for you and what? Give you something? Are they looking for gibs? I mean, you're obviously smart enough to figure out the master plan of the greater 21st century Russian Empire. So if any light you could shed on this would be, you know, since you understand Chinese manufacturing and a number of other things, if you could just shed some light on the geopolitical strategy that currently the Kremlin embraces, me and the chat would appreciate it to no end.
I don't know, man. I mean, it sounds like you had a better idea than me. So, hey, why not? I mean, you let us know what you think about how all this shit works. I never said so. I'm just saying what the fact on the ground is. They have about 20% of the army in Ukraine. You're telling me somehow that you have an insight into Russian geostrategic policies. Why don't you tell me? Enlighten me. I'm just a, sub IQ retard. How about that?
I tried. I really tried, but you understand?
Listen, I'm going to shut up. I take off the oxygen. I'm going to go back, sit down, sit my brown ass down. You tell me what the fuck's happening. All right, I'm going to find myself.
This is like trying to play catch with someone who's on the other side of a brick wall, right? I'm throwing but the brick wall is your skull. I'm throwing the ball, but it's bouncing right back at me. There's no way for that little rubber ball to get to the other side.
Okay, how about go to orbit.com. Okay, go to orbit.com. Go to any book written by Steven Zaloga. Okay, go through all those guys and just look through the numbers. What was the number of planes that the Chinese had in the 80s and 90s? I may be stupid. I do agree with that. Hey, I may be stupid. You know what? You may be stupid too. Maybe even dumber than me. Or maybe smarter than me. Maybe, whatever, right? Now, I do know Steven Zaloga is a long-term, he's an expert in this field. So, I would encourage you, buy these books, go to Amazon, and hey, I'm stupid.
I'm so anti-fucking book list. I don't tell anybody what fucking books to buy. What are you fucking?
Why don't you?
Everybody's
you should.
Frustrated.
Tell me. I need to. Why? You should write books. No, write books.
There's the only guy that's a school teacher who actually has real life school teacher experience that people paid him for. You're not one of those guys. So don't give out book lists.
I'm not. I'm just saying Steven Zaloga is. Steven Zaloga. I'm not. I failed county college. Okay,
I believe that. 100%. I believe that. That's probably the truest thing you've ever said on a live stream.
Yes, yeah. I also know that for a fact that if you, let's say, go to globalsecurity.com, you can look up the stats and the Chinese Air Force inventory for the last 50 years. So, I may have, not graduated from county college.
I'll give you another example. When China invaded Vietnam in 1984, how many planes did they use?
They fucking 4,000. I forget how much. Quite literally, they took it fucking
Then how come they lost to the Vietnamese? They sent 600,000 ground troops that lost a ground war to 75,000 Vietnamese. There was almost a 10-to-1 advantage, and the Vietnamese went to them like a hot knife. Butter.
No, the Vietnamese had better troops, they had better weapons, they had better training, they had better experience. All of it. The Chinese had zero. The Chinese just went through fucking 20 years of revolution after revolution. Their officer base was fucked up. You don't know shit.
Really? And Vietnam was like a summer camp between the French War, the beginning of France, and the end of America. That was like summer camp time.
By the late 70s, Vietnam had possibly one of the best army man-to-man in the world. They beat the shit out of America and America's proxies, South Vietnam, like that. Okay, Jesus, man. Vietnam was something big. The fucking Chinese were scared of them.
You like numbers. How many Americans died in Vietnam?
Shit, 52,000, 53,000? Yeah.
How many Vietnamese did we kill?
Something like 500,000. Now riddle me this: how many South Vietnamese soldiers died?
More like a million and a half.
No, that's bullshit. No, that's bullshit. I know all these numbers. How many South Vietnamese troops died?
I have no idea, about a million and a half.
No,
Because you know why?
half a million. So in other words, in actuality, it's not a bad number. The North Vietnamese didn't die as at a clip as most people make it out to be.
We had airplanes and helicopters, and when we couldn't see them underneath the
Listen,
jungle,
Peter just left. God damn it, man! Someone who is competent and educated just left, and this retard is on the freaking thing. All right, I'm sorry.
Because he's laughing too hard. The truth is because he's laughing too hard. He understands that 1 million is a bigger number than 50,000.
All right.
Okay. The reason why we killed 250,000 people in Iraq is not because we sent over 250,000 guys with AR-15s. It's because we bombed the shit out of them with B-52s. Non-stop fucking carpet bombing. That's how you kill large swaths of people.
Yeah, and that worked.
It did work.
Yeah,
it worked.
And America won.
But you're Chinese, apparently the Chinese, in your worldview, are too moral or too stingy or something. There's some reason why they don't want to use the largest air force on the planet in order to conquer Tibet or Vietnam or any of that's the only 2 military ventures I'm aware of. Done. But they don't want to use the airplanes. They don't want to waste their giant air force on Tibet or Vietnam. I guess they're saving up all those 65, 75-year-old airplanes for the big World War III battle they're going to have with the U.S. over Taiwan.
The Chinese are the only people to actually capture battle flags, American battle flags, in ever. Okay, they basically fought Korea to stand still. They beat the shit out of the Indian Army. They're very competent people. All right.
Indian Army. Jesus Christ, the curry munchers versus the chopstick jockeys. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know who to root for. Like, who do I want to lose more?
Okay, that's fantastic. Doesn't matter. That's your opinion doesn't mean shit.
Okay. Did they use any airplanes against India, or were they still holding them back in reserve?
It's in the 60s. Do you not understand the concept of timeline? 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s are all fucking different. Okay, that happened in the 60s and in the 50s. That's not the same thing. Even in the 50s, these fucking farmers beat the shit out, fought the Korean. You know, the whole thing was standstill. You know, it was pretty amazing what they did. Even they, took a lot of casualty. Anyway, so yeah, hey, I don't know. So yeah, I'm not gonna be around and basically, talk to retard forever. So yeah.
This is like a 9/11 conversation, for Christ's sake. Where's the airplanes?
What was? I just told you that. Listen, I'm stupid. There's a lot of places online. There's a lot of places you can buy books. I'm not a teacher. All right. All I know is that I can direct you to teachers who can teach you about military, conventions and all this kind of shit. So Steven Zaloga, okay, Amazon, a lot of good books. Anyway, I had lunch at home, so I gotta go and get prepared to go.
Butter chicken.
My cousin.
Junior butter chicken. Happy Diwali.
Oh, okay, all right. Whatever. Have some, whatever, man. I hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving, and I hope good luck and everything goes well, Otto, and the same to you, James. Even though we screamed at each other, I hope you don't lose your shirt with Bitcoin and I hope nothing bad happens to you and shit like that. So I really, I mean that actually, even though we kind of screamed at us for some time. So anyway, Otto, thank you.
All right.
Pohl, did you get the $150 voucher from Amazon or
not yet? They had to reschedule because they could only do in the morning last week, or this week. So she's gonna get back to me on Monday to schedule the 45-minute interview and give me the voucher.
Nice. So you're gonna buy books with it?
I guess, yeah.
Can you send them to another country? Could you just give a different address? Like ship the book to over here?
I don't think so.
Like,
I think it's got to be domestic.
It has to be in the U.S. So I was thinking it could be like a Christmas gift thing. You know what I mean? You could pick books written in Russian and send them to somebody who knew how to read Russian. If you follow what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
Yeah, I think it's just domestic. The company's out of San Francisco.
Right, okay, I don't know. Maybe, okay, but I think it's still worth a try. I think it's if you were thinking, hey, this would be a great gift, but to ship it over to Swaziland is too far. You know what? Have Amazon do it. Listen, put the address in. Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. If it
We'll
doesn't
see.
work, you go.
I got to get it first.
I understand. The point is, I'm trying to give you options. I'm trying to widen out the spectrum of potential courses of action you could take.
True.
I'm all about a widening spectrum. That and the exciting nature of China doing this immediate debit of your bank account from you walking on the grass or doing something they're not supposed to do. This is such a great test bed because you look at America now. You look at obviously you have the West Coast. You can shoplift $900 worth of goods before it's even a crime, and you see all these good boys, and even now everyone's getting involved in the act. As they go into Walmart, they go into Target, they start stealing everything. These smash and grabs in Chicago where they make $1 million in 4 minutes or $250,000 in 2 minutes by stealing high-end watches or something like that. This is exciting because the test bed of the technology of the techno-authoritarianism is being used on the most compliant population on the planet Earth, and that would be the population of China. But it's the people who are running this have an eye towards doing it here in the U.S., and it'll become necessary in the U.S. as more and more civil unrest occurs because George Floyd Part 2 or what fill in the blanks, hyperinflation, whatever, some sort of shakedown by a non-governmental organization, BLM, Antifa, whatever. They're looking to fill their coffers. So new riots over, again, some perceived injustice, which is just another day in Dindu Town for anyone else. But it gets pushed out on television and social media. So the country burns again. And in order to stop the country from burning, you have to donate money to whatever, Transgender Alliance for Freedom or something like that. Who knows what they're going to call it or what it's going to be about. But that will people do what they believe is they're likely to succeed at and what's easy. And if it becomes easier and easier to go into downtown or go to the shopping mall and riot and take free shit, people are just going to grow accustomed to doing that. You know what I mean? In the same way they grow accustomed to walking around with a smartphone, they're going to grow accustomed to everything else. The same way that's what's going to happen, and all that authoritarian, face recognition technology. We're gonna deduct your Section 8 credits from you, and they're honing that right now in China, and it will be applied here in the West, maybe within my lifetime. I would think within my lifetime. So an interesting look into what the future is. The question is, who's going to run? What are the rules going to be, and then how the rules are going to be enforced? And will you be able to move from this domain to that domain? That's going to be the biggest question, and that's going to be the exciting dystopian chess game of the 21st century for individuals.
Uh,
You're looking at the chat. I'm wondering. I thought you froze up. I thought
no, I'm here.
So anyway, that's likely what's happening. A lot of stuff, even though apparently from what Niaz was telling me, my understanding of history is poor. The Chinese invented the airplane, or they invented the Air Force. They have the biggest Air Force in the world. They just didn't use it in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s. They just, I don't know, they're holding it in reserve. So they have some propeller aircraft from 1947 that they're going to use to attack Taiwan or something like that. I don't think it's going to happen. But what an interesting crossing of wires must be inside that man's brain. Nonetheless, the testing of that technology to be applied to the West is 100% what they're doing. And it's exciting for me to see, because I think that's what the future is going to look like. I've said this before on my own channel, that the future is going to be you living on a corporate, in a truly corporate environment. You know, you talk about Amazon, $150 Amazon voucher. Amazon is opening supermarkets. They're called Amazon Fresh or Amazon something, Fresh Now. Amazon is opening supermarkets. There's a couple of sites where I see signs up that, Amazon is going to be opening where there used to be a Stop and Shop or something like that. This idea of, well, is Amazon going to do everything? Is it going to sell you everything? Where do its tentacles end? Where do its tendrils? What is the limit? And their answer is there will be no limit. And it's because it becomes unsafe to live somewhere else. You'll live in Amazon corporate housing, which will be safe. You know what I mean? So they'll be able to pay you less, right? Increase their profit margins. They'll pay you less, increase their profit margins, and you will be a wholly owned subsidiary of the Amazon Corporation. And that will probably be a better life than living out amongst the diversity.
Yeah, could see the reinstitution of company towns.
Yeah, but digital feudalism or whatever, people call it different things. Exactly what it's going to look like. It's tough to say because it is here yet. But there's some elements coming together, and I think that's it's fascinating for me to watch them. A lot of stuff, of course, is bullshit. The dancing robots from Boston Dynamics are crap. I mean, they're not. There's no robots. Robots aren't coming. The robots are decades and decades and maybe 50 years away. But a little drone that scans your face and sees you spit on the sidewalk and decides that's a wrong activity, that's against the corporate bylaws of the Amazon terms of service, circa 2035. And now you have to be downgraded from your corporate housing to whatever corporate shanty town. That's a realistic possibility, and it's fun for me to watch the pieces come together, But anyway, so I don't know. By the way, I sent you an email because I looked at Twitter and everybody told me to come on. So that's why I'm here by request. I didn't just barge in,
That's fine.
to knock Nayas off the street. I mean, I came here. This was by invitation only. This was I think two invitations, not just one. So yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's interesting, and people's reaction to it is absolutely fascinating. What's his name? Naya is talking about Bitcoin and Sam Bankman-Fried. That dude I just saw on Twitter, man. He's going to be giving a speech with. It's a panel of eight special people, and I'm sorry, a panel of 8 people, 4 of which are special, 4 of which are not special. And I'm trying to be careful with what I'm saying here, but there's 4 special people, and then their corresponding non-special persons. And he's going to be paid. You have to pay like $2,500 to go listen to this guy talk about, I don't know, the future of money. And he's, I don't know, stolen or lost $10 billion in the last couple of months. So it's pretty fascinating that you have this big financial scandal that still hasn't completely worked itself out. Multiple billions of dollars lost, misplaced, something, exactly what the crimes are, they're not even sure anymore. But the person at the center of this is going to be giving a sponsored talk that you will go, that the cognoscenti will go and listen to about what the exciting future is going to be. So I called it weeks ago. This guy's not going to prison. He's not going to be charged with anything. I don't know how they're going to shift it around where he's not guilty of anything and he gets to go scot-free, but he's going to stay in the Bahamas until that deal is done. And again, I don't know how that deal gets done, how many people are going to get paid off. I don't know what has to happen first, but it's in terms of big public crime. This whatever FTX thing is pretty big, in the world of finance, and for like it's not even going to be a show trial. It's not even going to be a rigged trial. You know what I mean? You can't say that, like, it's not even going to be a trial. Just to skip that altogether and go right to the not guilty verdict, and have him to go scam more people in the future. It's a fantastic flex. It's a mind-blowingly impressive flex of what level of power those people have. So and it's I'm not hurt by it at all because all my Bitcoin's in cold storage, and I just use an exchange to trade my USD for Bitcoin and ignore the noise. But because I have a low time preference, it's for people who are looking to get rich quick, and apparently that was a lot of people. Sam Bankman-Fried, remember, he has 2 degrees from MIT, not 1 but 2 degrees from MIT. Both his parents are professors at Stanford, and they're also considered consultants to on a number of different legal issues. So in terms of, you talk about the destruction of academia in the United States, one could argue that Harvard and Yale over the years, like, was it Harvard or Yale that had it was Yale that had Epstein. Epstein gave all kind of money to Jeffrey Epstein gave all kind of money to Yale, I think it was. So that kind of tarnished their reputation. And now the so-called the hard math schools, the engineering schools like MIT, going down the tubes as well by giving multiple degrees to someone who's obviously embroiled in some financial irregularities. So, the destruction of the Ivy League and all the rest, the way they've beclowned themselves is nearly complete. I don't know what other schools can compete. I mean, how much further down can you go before the elite institutions, the term elite institutions does not become a punchline in and of itself. I get. Hopefully the chat is something's going on with the chat. Hopefully the chat is enjoying the commentary. I
think so.
Yeah, it looks like okay. Yeah. Okay, a bunch of people saying hello to the chat. Anyway, well, that's you got to get audience engagement. It's all about audience engagement. It's all about you got to pump up them numbers. You got how many subscribers to the channel you got?
I don't know, 1,160.
Nice.
But I don't know. I don't know if any of those are human.
Yeah, that's on my Twitter. Is like I'm stuck around 850 or so, but I'm 100% sure like 800 of my followers are bots. There's no way I have 800 followers. You know what I mean? Because even there was something I tweeted that actually got like 15 likes and 8 retweets, and I just happened to see it again. Like I looked back for it, and I was like, "Holy crap! I didn't get any notification about any of that." But you're not going to get you get 8 retweets. You only get 8 retweets for like 50 followers. You don't get that for 850 followers. So yeah, understanding that 90% or more of the digital world is completely illusionary. Illusory, and everything that they tell you is not based in fact. It's not to use the overwrought 1984 analogy, but it's the constant now of 1984. You know what I mean? The party is always right. At this moment, the party is completely right, and you can't question it. And as the moment passes, whatever the party says next, they are completely right, and you never question it. So we're really, really living in that time, and people react to that in a real way, like it's like it isn't going to change in the next 10 minutes. So to me, it's entertaining. It's made it more entertaining to watch. It's made it a lot more entertaining to watch. But yeah, I'm not worried about robots. I'm not worried about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people are, I think there's still a delusional. I was noticing this. The Trump people, man, they're like out of their mind. I think some of them are bots. I look at replies to this. These people are an insane cult that will be mumbling in the corner of the American conversation or the internet forever. Once this guy loses in 2024, and I don't think he's going to win because, and the reason why, and I said this the other day, but I'll repeat it here. 2016, Trump was a genius in how he used Twitter. He bent the entire world to his voice using Twitter. There were entire nations that assigned government employees just to follow Trump's Twitter. It was that good. It was that powerful. It drove the news cycle. He now has a captive platform or something like some closed loop platform, Parler or Truth Social, or I don't even know what it's called. But it's a tiny echo chamber that's primarily used by his sycophants to extract money from the true believers, and he's not in any position to win anything. You know what I mean? Politically, all the people who believe he's going to come back are deluded. And I see the excitement on social media. A lot of people think it's so hilarious. Like, oh, wouldn't it be great when Trump comes back to troll the liberals? Like, oh boy, he's going to troll those liberals. He's going to drive them crazy. Listen, you fucking numbskulls. You don't need, they're already crazy. You know what I mean? That they happen to be all shouting at once at Donald Trump or as opposed to Clarence Thomas or whatever. They're always crazy. They're never not crazy. You know what I mean? So if you've decided that, well, I'm only going to be entertained if they yell at, you're limiting your entertainment opportunities. You should learn to laugh at other realities because they will always be screaming insane lunacy. They're always arguing with reality, and that should be the source of your entertainment, not that it's linked to one specific figure. So I think 2024, Biden wins re-election. I think the Ron DeSantis's primary selling point is I'm a good administrator. I'm a competent executive. And I don't think anybody gives a shit about that. Like the number of people who care about that is really, really small. And the people who control America's elections, they understand now they don't have to win by 81 million votes. They can dial it back from 11 to just 6, and that's all they need to do is win. And I think that's probably what they're going to do in 2024. You know what I mean? And they'll just keep shoveling money out the door. They'll keep printing money like crazy. They'll pump up the stock market. They'll tell you that the stock market is the real measure of the real economy, and the economy's never been doing better. And that's why we've got to stay with the same horse and don't go with that kooky Ron DeSantis, or whatever. And they're likely to win. They're really likely to win because everyone knows it's a joke. Everyone's just out to grab as much as they can before it all collapses, which is a mindset of an elite group. Get in there, grab as much as you can before it all collapses, and there's nothing left. And that worldview, I think, will become much more common and much more widespread. Whether that's people in the world of finance, like our friend from MIT, or whether it's people who live near a local Walmart who want to grab a flat screen TV because some donut munching civil servant pops a couple of pills into a good boy. Whichever way it actually, whatever the nominal excuse is, people are just going to look to run in, get as much as they can, as fast as they can, and get back out. And I think that's what the future looks like until the controls come in and they take all the money out of your bank account because not that you stole a flat screen, but you stole a flat screen and a blender, and you were only allowed to steal one item per looting spree. You know what I mean? So that's that. I suspect that's coming, but I don't think it's going to come super fast. But I definitely think it's coming. You know what I mean? That's the dystopia.
That's like I think it's Indonesia. They passed a law saying that you had to declare bribes for tax purposes, and they managed to bust a lot more people on avoiding the tax on the bribes than they ever did for the actual bribery.
Yeah, when I worked with Indonesians, they would in Jakarta they wanted to appear like a modern city, so they would put these HOV lanes for vehicles because rich Indonesians or rich Chinese, they'd be zooming by in their big, like 500 series Mercedes or something like that all by themselves, and people of course were envious and they complained about it. So the government of Jakarta, the local government decided, okay, what we'll do is we'll make a high occupancy vehicle lane. That way they're carpooling and this and that. And that'll solve that. Well, they just used a high occupancy vehicle lane anyway, even though they were alone. So they had to start finding these people. So at the end of a street corner where there'd be a stoplight, they would put a cop there and the cop would write a ticket. So, people adapt to incentives all the time. So poor Indonesians that lived in Jakarta, they would like 2 or 3 of them would stand in the street corner by where the HOV lane started, and the Mercedes would just pull up. They would all pile into the car. So now we had 4 people in the car, and he could go down the HOV lane as fast as he wanted, because he had 4 people in the Mercedes now, not get a ticket. And at the other end, they would just get out of the car in front of a building, cross the street, and do it going in the opposite direction. You know what I mean? And they would get paid to do that because it was cheaper to give a couple of rupiah, like 5 rupiah each to these chuckleheads than it was to pay the 200 rupiah fine for not having 3 people in the car. So and the Indonesians that I knew, when they told me that story, they laughed at how that was financial genius to them. They thought they were like the entrepreneurial geniuses of genius. That, oh, my cousin told me about this, and we just go wait on the street corner, and then they pay us to ride in a Mercedes. Oh, life is so great, And I used to think, my God, how insane in third world is that? But I think stuff like that's going to happen here relatively soon. Again, not tomorrow, but as economic conditions worsen, I think you're going to see crazy things in the U.S. And by then, the clown world meme people they'll just accept, beyond clown world, deepest clown world, esoteric clown world. There'll be people arguing that it was always this way. Everyone thinks that they're. Try to think of what it is. No one has a good sense of perspective, right? They think that today's problems are no one's ever seen them before, and this is immediately due to whatever the proximal cause that they dislike is. Whatever that proximal object that they dislike is, that is the cause of all negative social consequences, right? This is and they don't just think of it and say it the way that I did. They really go into this long, complex rationalization as to why it's true, and that's how they comfort themselves, and that's how they make it through the day. But the reality is they're looking at the wrong things. They're coming to the wrong conclusions, and they nonstop they nonstop rationalize everything that that they see and assume it's the first time it's ever been seen. So when you complain that people don't want to learn about history, they don't want to learn anything about history, not even in the broad, like the way I do it, like these big broad swaths of ideas that move over centuries or millennia or something like that. They don't even want to know that, and they sure as F don't want to know about the specifics of like when China really developed the world's largest air force, and no one ever asks how come they never use it. You know what I mean? If they have this mega super, we will block out the sun with our airplanes of air power. How come it's never been used? And I think the answer is because they're all just powered by bottle rockets. You know what I mean? They need to go with with the little lighters and light all the fuses at once. They get all those puppies off the ground at the same time. But listen, if you read it on the internet, it must be true. Remember that. If you read it on the internet, it must be true. And just questioning why does it never happen in a million years, makes you the odd duck out. So anyway, so how long have you been going? I think you said you were going to do like a short stream. It's like,
Yeah, we've been going for a while, so I'm gonna be ending it soon. But great to see you.
It's good to be here. It's good that I didn't screw up by saying the wrong thing. Huh?
No, you're all right. You're okay. No, I think I'm gonna go for a walk and before it gets too cold. It's 48 degrees now. It'll go down to.
I listen. I'm not. This might be illegal. I'm not. It might be illegal, but if it's illegal, don't do it. But why don't you walk down to the Salvation Army and mug some homeless guy and take his coat? That would help you. Maybe not. Okay,
I've got a coat.
Don't you have like a Salvation Army where you could buy like a coat for a quarter of the retail price?
I have a coat. I have a coat that I bought from Costco 2 years ago.
Yeah, but it's a coat from California. That's like a T-shirt. You know what I mean?
It was actually made in Vietnam, of all places.
Oh, yeah. Well, they know what the snow globe looks like. They make the snow globes. The coat works there. Oh yeah,
it works okay. I've used it in the 30-degree weather at 4:30 in the morning for weeks now.
Okay, all right. And so I guess those the people who live in the jungles of Da Nang have learned about climate change. I mean, sufficiently to make some money off.
They interrogated some of those northern Chinese they captured in '79. Tell us about this thing called snow.
I wonder how many they captured because I think they killed a lot of them. I think they just,
they killed a lot. I don't know if how many they captured and repatriated alive, but I think there were some.
My guess is I'm sure the Chinese probably surrendered en masse, but I think the Vietnamese at that point, you had guys that have been, some of them were probably like combat veterans for like 20 years, like literally 20 years. That's not he's not going to have sympathy if you surrender. He's just going to like, listen, the faster I kill you, the faster I get back to my wife and have some lemongrass noodles. You know what I mean? Like he does it. Like, I'm not letting you surrender because then I got to like, just fucking kill them, and guys like that were the commanders, and I'm sure the kids, working those crappy SKS fucking 5-shot rifles were like, whatever the commander says, that's what we're doing. So yeah, we'll never know the details. You never know the details about Asian wars that involve just Asians, unless Westerners are involved. There's no good records of any of this stuff. So that's unfortunate.
Well, I can't read Chinese or Vietnamese, so.
Well, I don't know that they document things that well. I don't think that they document it like in the way that I'm not aware that they. If you consider, even let's go back further, think of China invading Japan, or China's attempt to invade Japan in like, when the fuck was it? When was the 700s or whatever? When they got caught, they did the same like the Spanish Armada. They sent like 10,000 boats over to Japan, and then they got
you
caught.
mean the Mongols attempted to invade Japan? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was what, 700 AD or something like that.
No, it was later than that. It was under the Mongols.
1100? What? I don't know. When did the Mongols? I thought the Mongols were like 700. No, maybe not.
Oh, they were later.
Somebody in the chat now? That's literally a question from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. When did the Mongols invade China?
Okay, Mongols attempt to invade Japan. They did twice. The first was 1274, and the second was 1281, so the 13th century.
Okay, so when did they get wiped out by the storm? Both times?
Let me look. I think it was the first time, but I'm not exactly sure. Okay,
That they, let's,
in
they have
both
to take-
cases, the typhoons destroyed and sunk. So yeah, both cases they got sunk by the
imagine
kamikaze
all the
wind.
fucking rotten luck. Can you imagine, like, you're walking around, you're Genghis Khan, you're thinking, yeah, motherfucker, I'm Genghis Khan. There ain't nothing I can do. Every man on earth is terrified of me. Every creature on earth is terrified of me.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Genghis was gone. It was his grandson Kublai Khan.
You know what I'm talking about. This is like, they're thinking, oh, we could do this, but they didn't understand that water is different than like water. They must be terrified of water now in Mongolia. I can't imagine. They must be absolutely horrified. But the Japanese, and I guess since it happened twice, it reinforces the belief. But the Japanese, like, nope, our kooky, whatever the horn-headed god that we pray to, with the toads we lick, whatever it is they think saved them. They're like the bonsai, the divine wind saved us twice, and we're special magic people who the sun rises over us first. That reinforces that belief, but they're like, so I don't think they bothered to write down how many ships there were. Maybe the Mongols did because they had to pay for them. But the specifics,
Right.
the details
It says the
they don't
first one time they had between 800 and 900 ships.
nice. That's a lot. That's a lot of
between 16,000 and 40,000 men.
man. That's a lot of dudes. That's a lot of a lot of guys to end up in Davy Jones's locker.
The second time, 4,400 ships and 100,000 men.
Can you imagine? You know what the problem is? We didn't do it hard enough the first time. Double down. Double down.
Yeah.
Let's go.
And
Listen,
sink
listen.
again. And sink again.
Mr. Khan, I looked through the bones of the sheep when I was cooking it, and it said we should go this year. No. Next spring is when we go. Now, Mr. Khan, I've been looking, and the Oracle says we should go this year. No. Next spring, we're going with 4,000 ships. Wow. That's the Spanish Armada on steroids, And
Yeah.
it's like
most of the guys weren't Mongol. Most of the guys on the ships were Koreans and some Chinese.
Yeah, well, I don't think they had that many Mongols to send. Even if they wanted to go, they didn't have that many to send. But that's like the Battle of the Somme, right? I think I remember hearing about the Battle of the Somme, which was a big battle in World War I. Anybody doesn't know that. It was a big battle in World War I where the Allied generals, artillery was the shit. Like, the artillery was better than the old style cannons, and it was super precise. And they thought, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bombard the shit out of the Germans with artillery, and then we're just literally going to walk right into their country and take it over. And that was their plan. So they bombarded the Germans. The Germans hid inside their foxholes. And then when the bombardment was over and the Allied troops came walking across, the Germans just machine gunned them. And then the Allies fell back. And they said, you know what? We didn't do it hard enough. More bombardment, more artillery. They did it like twice as long. And again, they expected to walk right across the battlefield into Germany, la-di-da. And the Germans, once again, just hid in their foxholes. And when the bombardment was over, they popped up and they machine gunned the Allied soldiers. The finest military minds in all of Western Europe said, we know that we're going to bombard the shit out of them this time. They fucking had like a week's worth of artillery bombardment. And for a week, the Germans sat in their fucking, same thing. They hid in their fucking foxholes. When the bombardment ended and the Allied soldiers came over, the Germans machine gunned them. And I think it was like, they ended up killing like 1 million, like 500,000 or 1 million dudes, like in 3 weeks. So, I've got a bright idea, and the bright idea doesn't work. You double down when it doesn't affect you directly. Those generals, listen, whether it was the Spanish Armada or the Mongols or the Western generals of World War I, if you pay a price for your mistakes, you probably won't make that same mistake again. You know what I mean? But if someone else pays the price for your mistakes, you can make that mistake until the resources run out. You know what I mean? And that is that is a lesson that applies across many aspects of human endeavors. So if you make certain mistakes, you can recover from them if you learn. But if you don't learn, you will end up like the Mongols at the bottom of feeding the sushi farms outside of Hokkaido. You know what I mean? That will be the end of you. You will end up in a sushi roll that some samurai is chomping down on while he's telling geisha girl how brave he was for showing up and watching the storm sink everybody. Right? That's what he's doing. He's banging down the sake. He's like, "Yeah, baby, I was there. You know how it is." I don't think he really talked like that, but I don't know how black guys got into samurai Japan, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
These guys take credit for like, yes, and I was there and I was ready to fight, but the divine wind saved us. For the dudes that got splattered, machine gunned at the Somme, at the Battle of Somme, there's no epitaph for them, but the generals all, I don't know whatever happened to those generals. They probably lived to be a ripe old age and died in their beds when they should have caught some 50 caliber rounds or 30 caliber rounds right next to the guys that they sent into the meat grinder. But again, if you don't pay a price for your decisions, and when your decision is a mistake, you're going to repeat that mistake until it can't be done anymore. So with that, think of the decisions you're going to make tonight at Thanksgiving. Think of what you're going to eat. Think of how much you're going to eat. Don't get yourself, whatever. I ran out. I stretched that way too far. I ran out. Okay, it's 3 minutes. You got to go anyway. You got to go for a walk. Don't let nobody mug you for your Vietnamese winter coat.
I think I'll be okay. The city's totally abandoned on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, probably. There's nothing going on here, right? Anyway, to everybody in the chat, Jonathan Pohl, thanks for letting me on.
All right, no problem.
Take care, guys.
All right, bye.